Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming at you with another Wargaming miniature video. In this video, we're going to go ahead and finish up our Hail Caesar boot camp. In this video, we're just going to talk a little bit casual, very short video on how do you want to play this game, right? How do you want to play Hail Caesar? How do you want, what do you need to get started and things like that. I know in the first video I talked about like what you needed, like you need your opponent, you need a table, you need miniatures, stuff like that. But how do you get started? Like, what's my first step? And thank you, by the way, thank you for going through my Hail Caesar boot camp, watching all the rules. Now that you know the rules and you understand like the mechanics of the game, and I just want to put out that I think this game is pretty darn awesome. Okay, I give it 2 thumbs up in the ease and the playability of this game. All right, the first thing you need to do is find out what your game club is playing. Are they going to be playing the Roman era? Are they going to be playing the Greeks? Are they going to be playing biblical? Are they playing medievals? You know, whatever they're playing, if you can fit an army into that era, that would be great. If not, consider getting 2 armies from the era that you want to play. And maybe you can let one of them borrow it during a game, and then you can kind of convince them to play in your era. And maybe they'll all start collecting a second army. Or you can just start collecting armies in their era. So if they're doing medievals and they have an English and a French army, maybe you start an Italian army or something. Okay. Having said that, the first thing you need to do then is go and get you an army book, right? You need to find out which army, which era that you're going to be playing in, and get the appropriate army list. Or, as an alternative, get a campaign book, because they have multiple campaign books. They have the Germanian one, the Bretonian one. I think they've got a Hittite one, or this Egyptian Hittite one. I don't know if they do, but I know they got the British and the Germanic one, and then they got the Age of Caesar one as well. Okay, these are the campaign books. This is an army list. Once you get the army list, you find the army that you're playing in there, like the Republican Romans or whoever, and then you find out what kind of troops you need. Then go make a list of those troops, and then take that list with the troops and start collecting. And then as you make your army, 300 points is a good starting point. That's the best. That's a 3-division game usually, 300 points with most armies. Build your army, or build your army list ahead of time. You'll know, like, I need this, I need this, I need this. And then as you collect the models and paint them and put them together, check them off. Like, okay, this one I've already got, this one I've already got, this one I've already got. Oh, I still need the skirmisher unit here. And that'll keep a good running list. And once you get all those done, you've got a complete army. Then you could do that again on another one. Like me, I'm doing 2 simultaneously. I'm doing the Germans and the Romans all at the same time. I'm just painting all my Romans right now, but I am going to jump into painting some Germans pretty soon, probably before I even get to the Celts, and then I've got some Spanish Scutari coming in. I've already got Macedonians, but you know what I did with the Macedonians? I put them in a box, put them up on the shelf. I'm not going to touch them, not until I get done with the Romans and the Germans. Okay, so you got your armies starting to come in. You're starting to put them together. You're painting them. Now you need to decide. We're lucky. Our group is lucky. Our group is just now starting to get into Hail Caesar. And we're transitioning from other rule sets, Field of Glory primarily. We're transitioning from Field of Glory 15 millimeters to Hail Caesar 28 millimeter. So by doing that, we are lucky in the fact that even though it's not fresh, the game and the scale is fresh. So we decided, okay, let's go 28 millimeter. Cool. And how do we want to base our figures? Because as you know, through reading the rules, there's no real strict convention about how many figures you have, or if you already have figures, you can use them. If you got them based on 25 millimeter bases, that's fine. What you do is you just figure out what the frontage is and use less figures on the frontage, because it's not about the number of figures, it's about the unit block, right? So they recommend 20 millimeter per model and 40 by 40 for, this and that. Okay. So we're going with and you can do this or not, we're going with the recommended base sizes. If there's a base size in the book and it says a cavalry unit should have this base size, that's what we're going to do. Because it's fresh, we're new, we're starting with a clean slate when it comes to Hail Caesar. We don't have to take our Field of Glory armies and transfer them over to Hail Caesar because they're at 15 millimeter and we're getting rid of the 15s, we're going to 28s. Okay, so, and you can do this too. Just find out what your gaming club's basing conventions are, abide by that. If they don't have a basing convention, go with the default. Go with the default, because you never know, you might travel to a convention or something and you might want to play with someone else. They're going to fully respect and understand where you're at in the default gaming basing, and they probably are as well. So we're gonna. That's another reason why we're gonna default it. We're gonna go with the default basing convention. Now here's the rub. There's multiple sizes of units in here. You have large, medium, standard, large, standard, small, and tiny, right? That doesn't mean I can choose large, standard, medium, smaller, tiny. The scenario will choose that, or my points will choose that. So I will have a bunch of standard size units, or I will have a bunch of small units, or whatever. Now the number of figures in those units, there's a chart. And there's usually a range. So it'll say, and I'm going to use my Caesarian Romans because they're fresh on my mind. If you have a standard size unit, you need somewhere between 16 and 24 figures. Okay. If you have a large unit, it's somewhere between 24 and 30 figures. Okay. So what did I do? And I told my group, I said, take the smaller number, and that's how many figures you're going to see me have. So like my Roman cohorts have 16 figures, not 24, even though 24 comes in a box. What does that allow me to do? Well, it allows me to take those extra figures and add them to another cohort. If I'm paying $1 a figure, then instead of paying $24 for a unit, I'm paying only $16 for a unit. If I need 10 units, that's a lot of savings. So, and the rules don't care if I have 16 or if I have 24 figures. The Roman cohort fights the same either way. So why would I want to have 24 figures when I could do exactly the same thing with 16 figures? Hell, I could do the exact same thing with 4 figures. I could have 4 figures on the table and say, that's my Roman cohort. You could do that. And then your opponent has 4 Macedonian phalanx, or actually you'd probably need 8. So he would have like 4 in the front and then 4 in the back. And you could say that's his Macedonian phalanx. That would be perfectly fine. I mean, you could do that. I'm not doing that. Why do they say 24 figures? Okay, what you're asking yourself, but Mr. Everything, the range is 16 to 24, so why don't you use 24? Won't that give you a higher combat values? No. Won't that let you have more life? No. Because as you know from watching the first few videos, that doesn't have any effect on it. Okay. The only thing that it affects is how it looks on the table. So if you had a warband of like 200 models, like this big huge block of figures, and you're moving it across the table, that would look impressive. That would be like, whoa, look at all those figures coming at me. But nobody's going to have a big block of 200 models. So you have a block of 32 models. That's still freaking impressive, you know, so moving it across the table. Okay. Am I going to do 40 figures? No. Am I going to do 32? Yes. It's 32 to 40 for a warband, or a phalanx, actually. Okay, so always use the smaller number. That's my opinion. What else does that do for me? It does another thing for me. Based on the size of the tables that we have available to us, by having the smaller units, it allows for more maneuvering on a smaller table, and not so much crampedness. Our elbows will have a little bit more elbow room. So this kind of, it helps in the fact that there's more elbow room and there's more maneuverability on the table with smaller figures, and smaller unit numbers, and also it costs less. Okay, so now you want to know, what else you want to know? Oh, now you can base them individually. You could base them with, here, let's see if I got, here's some official Warlord Games Hail Caesar bases. These are the cavalry bases. Okay, they give you the 50s by 50s. This is where you put the two horses side by side, or you got the individual horses right there. I'm going to be using the two horse side by sides. I'm going to basically, that's my two units right there. There's 6 here, 6 here. And then I'll have one extra figure. Okay, but the 40 by 40 bases, right? These are all the same. Okay, the 40 by 40 bases, you get 9 of them, but you also have a bunch of singles. You got a double, and then you got a quad, like 4 guys standing side by side. This is great for like Macedonian phalanxes, right? You could put 4 by 4 by 4 by 4, and then you can use any of this combination of figure basing, but I don't plan to use any of these on the top. I'm gonna use these like there for skirmishers, the singles for skirmishers, obviously, but I'm gonna use everything else is gonna be on the 40 by 40s, except for my warbands and my phalangites. Those are going to be on bases that they're not Citadel. I bought them at Aero Litco, and they are 40s by 80s. So basically, they're 2 bases side by side, and then I'll just put 4 figures and 4 figures in 2 ranks, and that'll be my phalanx, right? But I don't have to worry about my warband. Now you could do is, and this is, I've considered this too, you could take your figures and you could make a 4 models across by 4 models deep if you wanted. So I could make like an 80 by 80 block of wood and have a big block and have 4 of those, or no, just 2 of those as my warband, right? And then I could, if I go in a column, I just pick one base up and put it behind. So, because in a warband, those are the only 2 formations you can have. So, you basically, you can, and I've also thought about, if I do a big block like that, I don't have to put them in perfect rows. I could actually put them as a wild bunch and maybe use one less figure, save a figure or two. Just make it look a little bit more wild on a bigger base. And that way, you're saving on models. One or two per base is not that big of a deal, but in the long run, if I got 100 bases or whatever, that's 100 figures or 200 figures. So that's actually a lot of, I mean, it's not going to be that many. How many stands am I going to have? Like 9? Yeah. So 9 stands at 32 figures a pop. That's 300 figures. And then if I save 2 or 3 per, 2 or 3 per, no, it'd be a lot more than that I'd be saving. I'd be saving like 4 per warband. And if I did that, then I could probably, with those models, I could probably make a 10th warband. I've considered that, just, and then, because you don't want your warbanders all to be like in a perfect line, shoulder to shoulder, perfect, just like the Romans, because then they'll look like they're drilled. You want them to be wild fighters, so you want to kind of have them in random spots on the base. That's my interpretation, my thinking. Okay, so once you got your armies based, you got put together, you're slowly starting to assemble them. You're starting to find some. You need to find some opponents. Well, you can put a word out at your local gaming crew. You can look for conventions, or you can just invite friends over to the house and you can play. Once you start playing and everybody else starts seeing you play, maybe you'll talk to your local game store. Ask them to start carrying the Hail Caesar game. I don't see this in very many game stores in this area because I don't see a lot of historicals other than maybe Flames of War. I see 40K left and right. I see Fantasy, Age of Sigmar, all that. All right, so really I didn't have a whole lot to say about the end of my boot camp. I just knew that I needed to kind of touch on armies, building an army, getting the points and stuff like that, but getting your army list. So the next video I plan to do in the Hail Caesar line is probably going to be, well, other than me putting my models together and giving you an update like daily on that, I plan to do a review on the Age of Caesar book. I like some of these scenarios. I don't like some of these scenarios. All right, I'll see you then, and I appreciate you guys checking out this series. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you want to help support the channel, hit the PayPal me link in the description below, and I'll see you next time.